Hello there, I'm Air, he/him.
I'm Ember's Tide, he, him.
And I'm Haley, she/her.
And this is Inside Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom. And here we are this week. Haley's very wise. She recently got a full 20 whiz on her PC.
Oh, it's true. I feel so powerful, especially now that I realized all my saving throws were wrong before, because I can use Roll20 so well. And now...
I mean, you will be the most insightful check here this week.
You know
you've
what's...
got the biggest number.
It's true, but you know what's really sad? All the times in our game that I rolled anything wisdom base, it was like 2 plus 8. And I was like, 2 plus 8, still not good.
The dice taketh away.
Yes.
And the dice taketh away.
So, I'd like to get us started with a bit of a crawl of dungeons, if that's all right with y'all.
Dungeon crawl?
Dungeon crawl, yeah. Let's crawl in some dirt.
A dungeon crawl.
Let's just get filthy.
Yeah. Never mind why, but a lot of the luminaries of the Dungeons & Dragons world spent a little bit of time last week describing in little tweet-sized bitelets, kind of like those little Reese's Pieces ice cream balls you buy in a tub that are so delicious.
Wait, I have to interrupt for just a minute. It's not at all relevant. I'm sorry, but I can't stop myself. Have you seen that they're making Reese's peanut butter cups with Reese's Pieces inside? I don't understand. This seems like an abomination to me, but some people are...
It's not an abomination. It's a reception.
Oh, God.
It is.
Why is that happening?
I
This is
have
apparently
had them.
my dungeon crawl.
It adds nothing. It is a shallow addition for no reason. Can you also please re-say the name of the candy?
Reese's Pieces? Reese's Pieces?
Ooh.
That might be what I said.
Now, is this... Oh, okay. Now, I was like, is this a Haley thing? Is this a...
It's probably just
Nor'easter... Oh, okay.
Reese's
okay.
Pieces? Yeah, no,
It
I would...
would
If
be
I
a
were going
great-
to pronounce it correctly, I would probably say Reese's Pieces. I don't know now. I'm having... And I can't decide what I would normally say. Embers, what would you call them?
A Reese's Pieces.
Reese's
That's so good.
Pieces.
So spicy.
From a McBeezy.
They're very nice.
But
Oh,
dungeon
God.
crawl. We could do a dungeon crawl.
Yeah,
we
let's do
sure could. I'm...
At
Yeah.
any rate, these little bite-sized, delicious, tasty niblets of tweet were all about encountering a gate in Dungeons & Dragons. And for whatever reason, some of the luminaries of the D&D world all thought to chime in, and I thought some of them were awesome. And honestly, I am a total sucker for those kinds of instant prompts, and they always set, my brain off imagining little one-shots. And so I, as I have a tendency to do, trolled through Twitter and found some ones that I liked, and in rapid fire, I'd like to share them with y'all.
Nice. I was a big fan of these, so bring it on.
All right. Again, in no particular order. The first I will do comes from voice talent and crit roll luminary Liam O'Brien at Voice of Brian. And I'll just try to do my best inside the actor studio of these. And we'll send links and put them up in the podcast as we post it. The imps shake their spears, guarding the crude fence built across this ancient road through the Woden Pass. As you draw near, they shriek in agitation and block the wooden gate. But you quickly realize the fence itself is only 2 feet high. And then you simply step over.
That was one of my favorite ones, actually.
Yeah, me
Oh,
too.
it was so cute.
There's adequate tongue-in-cheek for a lot of these, and I loved it. So at Ithala, the impenetrable fortress door sealed with the deepest magic. The single keyhole has confounded generations of locksmiths, rogues, and mages, until one day, a young girl playing nearby asks her stuffed owlbear if he would like some tea. I love that. Next, from Low Wisdom Czech, as in Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, I believe.
Ah.
You stand on bone-tiled floor in front of fleshy, oozing, slowly pulsing wall of mangled flesh, sinew, fur, and bone. Vertical line of foot-long, sharp teeth intertwined blocks your way to the throne room of Glacia, ruler of the 6th layer of hell. Also your mother.
Also your mother. Whoa, a crazy twist at the end.
A Freaky Fridays.
This reminds me of there's a Twitter account that does just short.
Yes.
I think it's like short sci-fi or short fantasy or something. So it's like a story in a tweet. It always has
Pocket Fiction. One of the best Twitter accounts of all time.
Yes.
That's the one. That's the one that I totally knew the name of. It didn't give a vague description of, but a few moments ago.
It's okay. It may or may not be one of the accounts I obsess over enough that vague descriptions come in at perfect 20/20 acuity to me.
You were in sync.
All right. At I Am Sinchu, you scissor kick the pyramid and down towards the waiting arms of your spotters with a final triumphant cry of, "Go Eagles!" You don't land. Your next fully aware moment, you're standing in front of a green, tusked man saying, "Do you want the job or not, Bard?" So as a former Philadelphia resident, I only read Go Eagles one way, but I'll save that because it may be projecting. At CBSA82 Terminally Nerdy, the first thing you notice about the gate is the warmth coming off of it. The smell of oak, of nature, slowly comes to the fore. This door, carved with ancient sigils promoting joy, adventure, and community, seems inviting, almost as if it's saying, "Come in." And next, at the Sage BB, ears still ringing from the explosion, an acrid smell fills your nostrils. As you open your eyes, you see the dust settling around the remnants of a magical pylon. At its center, the air shimmers in a perfect circle. The world you see through it, nothing like your own.
Ooh, I like that one.
God, I'm such a sap for this stuff. Thank you for tolerating this for me. From the people some people call Chris Perkins, at Chris Perkins D&D. You peer through a mouse hole and knock on a tiny door. A gray mouse wearing a wizard's cap opens the door, waves a tiny hand, shrinks you down to a size, and ushers you into the realm of wonder, friendship, and make-believe.
A perfect one from Mr. Perkins.
Yeah, and in suitable juxtaposition, Matthew Mercer, the massive steel doors grind open as sweat drips down your brow. A guttural rumble draws your eyes to a gargantuan, tooth-filled hellmouth that is floor below you. You scan with your optic unit, and cold fear takes your mind. That is the doorway you seek.
I'll take the mouse door, please.
Please, more mouse door.
Yeah.
Please, mouse
Not
door.
the hellmouth.
Mouse door for me.
And keeping with the high rollers, Todd Kenrick's was, "You hesitate before the storm giant's door as a wave crashes against the rocks below. Lightning flashes as the immense door opens. The giant stands before you and with a booming voice says, 'We are playing dragon chess. We are missing a piece. Mind filling in?'" And last one I got, Gil Ramirez at Gil the Vlog Smith. "The wall ahead of you bears no entrance. The patterns seem foreign. Sounds of heavy hooves begin to catch up with you. Your eye lands on a hole where the glyphs align. You place the geared-shaped mace inside and begin turning it. Click. You alone hold the key." And so that's what I got. I like talking about gates on Twitter. Thank you.
I think it's yet another example of how awesome the D&D community is, that they took something that was crummy and they made it something that was awesome and creative.
Yes.
I think that's like, there are lots of bad taglines that I would pretend that I'd pitched at a marketing meeting at Wizards of the Coast. But for me, the thing that moves me the most is exactly that. You can take any negativity, you could take any hardship, and the more people you see in the community online, as we can get exposed to it so easily now, shows you that this is sometimes a place you go when you need a little bit of solace, a little bit of respite, and the skills, the muscles that you train when you DM, GM, or play as a character allow you to turn anything, nothing, something good, something bad, into incredible stuff. And I love it. And so I really appreciated this. I appreciated the people who posted this. I guess just y'all have my thanks, because this was a great way to make lemonade.
Haley, did you have a dungeon that you wanted to crawl?
You mean my candy comments weren't my dungeon crawl?
I mean, I was going to give you another one. I wanted you to crawl as many dungeons as you felt comfortable
dungeons.
Well, so before we do, though, I have a little coda on this candy conversation. I had a good friend who worked at one of the, I shouldn't say which candy company. Let's say it rhymes with Besley.
Okay. Yes.
And this individual,
Nutella, got it.
Right. Blessed as she was constantly coming back to us with bags of prototype candies.
Yeah, I actually, one of my best friends growing up, her brother's now wife also worked there and had the same thing. Or maybe at the other one in Pennsylvania. But yeah, lots of prototype chocolate. And I was like, wow, I work at a food company and all I get is prototype fish.
Prototype fish.
Yep. That's what you get when you work at a seafood company. Prototype fish.
Is that like a primordial missing link fish?
No, it's like some
a
genetic.
coelacanth or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Prehistoric
I thought it was like
fish.
a GMO thing. They come out of the water like pre-mesquited.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just all gelatinous and oozy.
And oozy, gross.
But it was like the Matrix, when you realize that the world around you with Reese's peanut butter cups that go 2 to a bag and are just peanut butter and chocolate and nothing bizarre or crazy is a total fabrication.
That is true. One of the prototype fish, I now have to share it now that we've gone down this road. My favorite prototype fish was a and I don't think it ever went to market, but they had this fish that was breaded in potato chips.
That sounds awesome.
So they had like salt and vinegar breaded fish, so it was like all of the things that you would want to eat with fish, like already attached to your fish. And I actually thought it was pretty good because it was also fried potato chips. Like, I'm mostly used to eat the breading. I'm not a huge fish person. So I was like, these fried potato chips are good.
This is like the Exhibit spin-off of Pimp My Ride.
Pimp My Fish?
Pimp My Fish.
I'd rather be on Pimp My Chocolate. That'd be much better.
Well, that leads naturally into my dungeon crawl. Hold on, I can make the segue work. I have recently found from the amazing Sly Flourish at Sly Flourish, instead of having to do the mental gymnastics and arithmetic of crunching all the numbers to figure out your combat encounters and what would make them fair in the CR system, or having to pull up a tool like Kobold Fight Club, we have recently retweeted one of their tweets on the Tweetsaur on @InsideCheckPod, which is a rough guideline of how many of a particular CR type of monster you can reasonably throw at a given number of characters. So it says here for just a quick single chart for characters of first level: CR 0 to 1/4, 1 monster per character; CR 1/2, 1 monster per 2 characters; CR 1, 1 monster per 4 characters, all the way up into, it gets a little bit more complicated when you get into 5th to 20th level. Like if you have a creature that is CR, the level of the party plus 3, 1 monster for 4 characters.
What do they say about shadow dragons?
I would need to remember what the CR on a shadow dragon is, but I'm sure there's an asterisk at the bottom of it that says this does not apply to your DMJ.
Guess what, guys? We killed a dragon.
We killed a shadow dragon.
Killed a dragon.
We
I've
had
won
help
Dungeons
from our
and
good
Dragons.
friend- Yeah, our good friend Leap joined us, and we managed to kill a shadow dragon.
Yeah.
Well, it's fair to say the party did all the work, and I swept in at the end and grabbed the glory by getting the killing blow, having done no damage to it up until that point. I hid, and I sang my songs, and that was it. Anyway, but it's a very good rule of thumb, I think, if you're just trying to quickly figure out, like, what would be a fair challenge for these characters. It's a nice handy reach out to have. So check it out. We have retweeted it on the tweet store, or check out at SlyFlourish on Twitter.
Yeah, I agree. I found that helpful. I rarely DM, but when I do, I try to avoid going down every rabbit hole of decision making and planning. Stuff like this helps me a lot.
Oh, really? I need to learn that skill. Any rabbit holes I can fall down, I will, in any aspect of anything. Speaking of rabbit holes and things that I enjoy, I don't have a good segue, but I'm trying. I got behind on my podcast live game listening, and so I've been working on catching up, and I'm finally nearly back caught up with Critical Role Season 2, and my dungeon crawl is going to be about how much I love Kiri and how much I really like...
I kill people.
I am very sweet.
I am very sweet.
I'm very sweet. My name is Kiri. Anyway, I also think, one, Matt is just incredible and does a very good job of her, and I like that he kind of like plays into like having her listening to like conversations that people didn't know that she was awake for, and things like that. But I also really like that. I find it very interesting, like the impact that had on the party as a whole, and that being a really cool like mechanic that you could throw in, like instead of just go fight monsters, save townsfolk, like protect a child and try to find its family for a while, or end up having this NPC along for the ride that you have to think about, like, okay, we're going into a battle, she can't come with us. Even though she's got a dagger and she's flailing it around saying that she kills people, she's not going to help you. And so they were, it just has brought out, I think, some very interesting instincts in different characters, and I have really liked seeing the role playing around that.
I too have incredibly enjoyed Kiri. I like Kiri as just a master class in how to run a Kenku.
Seriously.
Like, I've been waiting for one of these, pro level DMs to run a Kenku to see it. And I think that the use of a Kenku as a follow along NPC for the party is a great thing to do, because it offers a mirror to the party so they can see themselves reflected in, a more naive or innocent thing. Like, my favorite Kiri moment so far is when Matt had her go, okay, which is one of Ashley Johnson's like mannerisms or things that she says, and she says it in the game all the time, and like out of character even, but Matt picked up on that, and the meta joke was that it was something Ashley would say.
Right.
But it was endearing to see all the things he picks up on and uses from their RP to instantiate like Kiri's personality.
Yeah,
it serves as a way for the party to be like, we are terrible people.
Yeah, like
we're dragging this child through murder and weird towns. Anyway.
Yeah, suddenly
but
it's like
super reinforcing to the strength of the narrative and the characters, like you're saying. You're absolutely right. It's so great.
Yeah, and it kind of forces them, too, to be a little more introspective about their characters. Like, would my character want to protect this child? What would my character do? Would they say, like, she can fend for herself? Like, there was the, like, okay, do we just give her a horse and send her on her way? And, like, stuff like that. And I think it was really interesting when she did start mimicking more and more things, like when she said, I kill people, they were like, oh, this is a child. And then she's, like, stabbing dead bodies with a knife. Like, and
they're like, oh, that's so cute.
That's cute, but maybe not if there's other people around. Don't do that. Don't stab them. Unless they're mean to you, then you can stab them.
Yeah, they knocked someone unconscious, and she came running over, and they're like, no, not this one. Go over there and play. Like, the cute tag-along NPC that they can see the worst of themselves in is a fun thing to leverage, I think.
It makes me want to have something like similar to that in a game and kind of see how we would react to it. Would be very interesting.
Absolutely. Jay, take note. Give us a Kenku.
I would like a child to babysit and maybe a farm. Really? I just want to play Stardew Valley.
Our game is Stardew. Yes.
A brief list
the
of
end
demands.
Oh.
We are about to go into our new favorite segment, Improve Your Improv.
I like the Doppler effect at the end.
You didn't even realize you were moving far away from me until you couldn't hear me anymore. But now I'm back. I've run straight back to you. And I am going to be your DM for this evening, and we are going to run a scene. I hope you're okay with that. Consent first and foremost.
Let's do
Is that
it.
okay? Cool.
What if I said no? I would ruin
Well,
your
Embers and
segment.
I will have a great time, and we'll see you later.
Nope, that's good. I'm in.
Okay, cool. So I've picked this scene because it's one of my favorite things to do, and I think it answers a question a lot of people have, which is, what's a good puzzle? And the problem is, a lot of the great puzzles, most people, especially nerds, gamers, know the answers to. I mean, if you ask them what walks on two legs in the evening and whatnot, they're probably going to figure it out. So this is an example of a puzzle you can use pretty much anywhere, and I'm not going to reveal the answer to you because you are the players and I'm about to do it, but I will after the fact and we can debrief. Sound good?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm game.
All right. Jay, insert some dramatic crypt crawling music here, please. Yeah. That's amazing. I didn't know Jay could do this shit real time. He really is magic. You enter, tired and weary, into what you assume must be the last room of the crypt that you and your party have been crawling through for the past several days. As you squeak open the large wooden iron-hinged doors, you see a dark room with a tiled walkway that reaches out into darkness. And as you step into the room as a party, you watch as lights flick on. You can see that they're attached to wrought iron sconces that are dug in to lawn columns that reach up from the floor to the ceiling. They alight in sequence down the length of this hallway, each one igniting in green flame.
Green flame.
Green.
Thank
flame.
you.
I've been conditioned.
Yeah. And you get a peanut. As
Ooh,
the
peanut.
last sconces
What a
at the
Reese's
end
cup.
of the room alight on their associated columns, you see the light from them flickering across what seems to be a large stone bas-relief of a face. And you can see at the very corner of this face is a large stone handle. As the party approaches the door, slowly, you watch as this face slowly churns the stone, moving and grinding against itself to animate it, until you look upon the visage of Avalor, the very wizard whose tomb this crypt is supposedly of. This is where he was supposedly laid to rest. The face smiles down at you, a large, rictus grin, and says, "Finally, someone's come! I ask you, were you able to get past the puzzles? Were you able to avoid the traps? Make your way through the entirety of my maze while dodging and defeating my intellect devourers? Are you the heroes that were promised?" And he looks at you expectantly.
Well, obviously we're here, aren't we?
I mean, you are. You didn't cheat your way down here, did you?
I mean, if we were able to bypass some of your things, you clearly didn't make it well enough.
I like your moxie. Fine. There's only one challenge that remains before you. Having circumvented the maze, having moved past the traps and the puzzles, having defeated my army of intellect devourers, I ask you this one thing. What do I value most? And the face grows still as it smiles down at you.
I think my initial thought would maybe be intellect.
Well, if he spent all this time wanting somebody to come in, wanting somebody to jump through all these hurdles that he's designed, one thought would be whether or not he would acknowledge it, he wants the recognition of his craftiness, his deviousness, his insight, his intellect. So maybe what the truest answer is, maybe truer than he can appreciate, is recognition,
that he is
admiration.
the smartest and best of us.
Right. He may not want it framed so directly. Maybe
What?
he wants to see that play out in our responses. Maybe
What
he wants
if-
to see that he has been such a grand foe to adventurers like us who, are seeking a you know an infamous secret or treasure. So the admiration of his craft and maybe the knowledge that he holds, that he guards and protects, those would be the two ways that I might play this with him.
Interesting.
The question is, do we want to curry his favor, or do we want to kind of cheese him off?
Maybe curry his favor. Maybe the true treasure, too, is maybe he was lonely. And he wanted people of equal intellect to... The true treasure is the
too.
friends you made along the way.
Yeah, right.
That's the real adventure.
That should be the answer to every D&D campaign.
You watch as the flames on the pillars begin to alight even brighter, and the face again grinds into motion and says, "Well, dum-dums, what is it? Tell me, what do I value most?"
A great deal on car insurance.
I'm assuming that's table talk. You watch as the flames continue to grow and spread down the columns
So I
towards
would
the
say-
floor.
so-
I
what's,
value not being on fire, so...
DM,
And if only the question was, what do you value, you'd have an answer.
wait, DM, could you remind me of this wizard's name?
Avalor.
Avalor.
Avalore.
So, I'll just sort of approach him, and as the flames are growing higher, say, "Really, you've waited this long for us to arrive? This long, after we've travailed and been dragged through, scarred, burned, singed, waiting to see you, for you to see us, to come here, and you do away with us so quickly? Have patience. Let's enjoy the waiting. The anticipation is the most beautiful part of any riddle, of any puzzle. What's the rush? You're not going anywhere."
That was beautiful. That almost sounded like the lyrics to a song. Very moving. The waiting is the hardest part. I've been waiting for millennia. Now tell me, what do I value most? You watch as the flames start spilling out across the floor, becoming a carpet
Oh dear.
of burning green embers, slowly crawling towards your feet.
So tell me, what else did we see in this room after it was lit up, but before it was covered in fire?
It's pretty much a plain room, rough-hewn stone. There is a tiled floorway in between the pillars. The pillars are simple, kind of Doric columns. Nothing to write home about. The torch sconces are simple. The most ornate piece of it is the door with his face carved into it, which is moving and apparently yelling at you.
Does it have a countenance? Is it looking angry, or is it looking more amused?
It's looking more crazed and more demented the longer you talk to it. You get the sense that this guy was a few cards short of a full deck.
What are we here looking for?
You have been told that there is a vestige of his power buried somewhere deep in his tomb. You think it might very well be behind this door, from what you've been told.
What are you thinking?
I was thinking...
We're going to be burnt to cinders?
Yeah, I can't make a decision. I will be lit on fire.
I choose death.
I throw myself into the flames. No. Too close to home today. Sorry. I can't stop picturing myself just jumping into a bunch of green flames.
Listen, it's absolutely within your purview to do that.
I will not do that. Should we just go with either his own intellect?
I kind of want to push him along these lines. I want to push him and say that the things he values most are his secrets, things that only he knows, and he can light up flames and burn and make traps and all of that. But none of that speaks to the secret that he guards closest. And at the end of the day, it's what he protects, but it's what he wants others to come and chase after. It's his greatest prize. He wants all these adventurers to come through these traps so he can amuse himself with their death and destruction.
Yes,
gloat at them,
yes.
But he could do none of that without his secrets.
So do you relay that all to him as he stares down upon you?
Can I roll with this?
Oh, absolutely.
Do it. I like it.
Okay, so I turn to him and I say, what brought us here, and what's brought every other adventurer whose bones litter the floors of your dungeon in this crypt, the thing that keeps you here, deep underground, a vestige of your former self, a shadow of what you were, is what you value most. It's what you protect with all of this. And it's what has twisted your protection to amusement and gloating when we come down to this final room, see you take your last riddle and be your last dance of entertainment in the flames. The thing you value most is your one last secret, the one last vestige that you've left on this material plane. Maybe you plan to keep it here forever, but that secret is the source of all your power. It's what brings people here. It's what keeps you entertained for millennia, long before we were born, and as you'd have it long after we're charred cinders here. The only thing that you have after all of this is dust is your secret. Now, what good is it to you here?
As you finish, you simply hear a cackle of as the lights completely drop out around you. And as the cackling subsides, you hear a as the doorway slides open, revealing a light beyond into a chamber. And that's our scene. So the reason I like that puzzle is it isn't a puzzle. It's a role-playing thing. Your answer was always going to be right, but the notion of what a puzzle is kind of trips people into talking it out and trying to find a solution. So open-ended puzzles are great because you can do whatever you want with them. Haley, if you leapt into the flame, I was going to have him be like, that's right, madness is the only truth in this world. You just work with whatever that, character or scenario contextually would fit with the answer, and you go with it. If you want to, harangue the players a little bit, you can always make it a little bit tougher. The first answer isn't necessarily the correct one.
Yes,
so they always think that you had an answer. You always had the right answer. But really, you just stretched it out for fun until you thought they came up with something that was enjoyable.
And I was thinking one of us would give the first answer, and there would be like this crossbow bolt that would fly out of some shadow in the wall.
And you can absolutely do that. And that's a great part. The other thing I like about anthropomorphizing a trap or a puzzle like this, it's kind of a blend of all of them, is it's a chance to kind of, make the big bad evil guy, mock or tease or get at the players. This was something I did in my first campaign. It was the face carved door, and it was a similar answer, actually, appealing to the Mad Wizard's ego. I was inspired by, as I'd mentioned previously, the Arc of the Mad Mage campaign by AI, and so the last thing we did in that campaign was a funhouse dungeon like that, which was all about this wizard's consciousness imbued in this dungeon.
That's you're gonna be like, the door opens and through a smoky lit aperture steps Seal. And Seal says, you're ever going to survive.
Without being a little crazy. Ever going to survive.
Yeah,
the
that's
madness was in you all along.
Yes.
Well, I was like, when you were describing it, I was getting a very AI vibe, and I was like, and then out of the door comes a cult of a Sararak.
Yes.
That was awesome. I love those sorts of moments where the two characters can step outside and do engaged table talk and be like, how do you want to do this? how do you want to approach it? How should we play it? Because you get into sort of this, you can get into sort of this economy of kind of like, sometimes I'm absolutely uncomfortable with taking the lead and trying to move towards a decision on something in a game. Sometimes I'm very motivated to kind of try and be a part of helping craft a solution. But it's always a good chance for constructive table talk in a party. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people maybe don't feel like they can take the time for.
Mm-hmm.
And they are like, okay, what are you going to do? And I mean, there comes to be a time when you do need to push people a little bit, but I think you can get a lot of good, like, it kind of encourages people to think about, what I was thinking about there was like, I don't know what my character is. Like, who am I playing right now? Am I Haley? I feel like that, and getting your players into situations that make them think, like, what would Fia do in this situation versus what Haley would do, I think is important to let them have time to talk over things like that with the group, because I think it gets people more in touch with their characters.
I absolutely, could have, if you wanted to make it more of a skill challenge, you could also call for a roll at the end of it. I could have asked Embers for a persuasion check at the end of that soliloquy, or I could have asked Haley if she had leapt into the flames for a dexterity saving throw or something like that, and it only would have worked had you failed or something like that. So there's a lot of fun ways to spin it, but it's true. I like that it predicates, I like setting up situations as a DM that predicates interaction between the players, because I find a lot of players, particularly new players, are sometimes like, they're ready, they spend a lot of time like learning the rules and getting ready for the mechanical aspects, and the RP aspects are like, oh yeah, I am Korg and I have spear.
This sounds like me.
It's a different part of your, it feels like a different part of your brain, or like a different muscle in your body. And as you focus in getting ready for debuting a character or creating one, you're using a different muscle in your body, different part of your brain. And then that person comes into an immersive environment with other characters, and you're kind of like, That's how I feel.
Right. Especially if you have some people who are stronger role players than others, it's easy to just take like a back seat with your, like, if you're not, because I sometimes feel like I'm like, well, I don't really have the best idea of what the solution should be here. And then I just sort of end up like kind of letting others take the wheel a little bit more when I play, which can be.
And I think that's okay. I think that's I think that's how players develop that for me, that's how I developed a comfort level to, after the second or third time, for me, at least if I'm remembering it right, I proposed a solution for the first time, or I chimed into a table talk discussion. I kind of, when I felt ready,
Yeah, I think it's getting easier. I just think that, having the more moments where you can be like engaging the whole party to talk and discuss a strategy, and getting people to talk, and like maybe encouraging them to like talk as their characters. Like, what would you say to your party member, instead of just saying, okay, someone said that you guys are going to do this, so that's what you're doing, right? I think it can be hard as a DM. Sometimes you're just like, okay, I heard a plan. That's what you're doing. Okay, we're moving on.
I also wanted to offer up something for new DMs, because as you saw there was nothing mechanical about it. There certainly could have been. There could have been skill checks. There could have been saving throws. There could have been any number of things that were added in. But if you're just looking for a puzzle to throw at your players, or it's also kind of an RP experience too. It's almost like an interrogation or something like that. Kind of fuse the line. But this is something you can do that ate up 10 minutes?
Yeah.
So there's something you can add into your dungeon that is non-mechanical, non-rules based, pure RP, and all you have to do is embrace a character or a scenario and put it in front of your players and ask them to work as a group to do it. And there you go. You've already got a decent portion of your session covered, and you don't have to figure out DCs or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good call. I like.
Thanks, Embers. This is a new segment we're trying, and last time it was about lifting sheep. So, Haley, do you want to take us into the next part?
So sometimes on this podcast, we answer questions. And this is one of those times. All right, so we have some questions from this week's weekly question thread. Are you guys ready?
Yes, weekly question thread number 163 from r/D&D.
Lightning round.
Woohoo! Yeah, let's go for it. All right, so weekly question thread number 163 from Cool Slice, spelled Kewl. Asks, running a D&D 5e game with a few buds, and none of their characters have spell casting, save for racial spells and the totem barbarian stuff. Would it be bad to allow them to use spell scrolls without being spellcasters? I'd probably still require them to make the Arcana check to cast it per normal. Maybe decreasing the DC even, making it 10 plus, double the spell level, or is that too harsh? What do you think?
I would. So Lana's. Yeah, you have a party of non-casters, and you're not kind of stepping into their kit. Like, no, I know how to cast it. Oh, I just have it on this piece of paper. See you later, wizard.
Yeah.
That can kind of make them feel less special. But if you definitely have a melee heavy, low magic party, I see nothing wrong with it. Like, I think we've said it before, but what's D&D without the magic? Fantastic element. So yeah, I think even just having a normal Arcana check, like the normal rules that the spellcasters have to follow of the DC being 10 plus the spell's level, is still probably going to be a decent enough challenge for folks who probably aren't trained in Arcana.
True.
But a good roll and boom, they get a fun spell.
Yeah. I think that spell's one way to do it. I think that you can engineer a couple of ways. It almost becomes like a Resident Evil type of situation where you have limited resources, limited precious resources.
Is this going to be about mixing herbs in just a moment, Embers?
Oh, well, now it is. But there's that's a great example. Yes, actually. Dang it. Yeah. You could take the scroll tactic. You could take an herbalism tactic. Again, modifying DC I think is totally fine given the circumstances and the players in the party. But there are, you could take that naturalist route. You could take the route of, your team has this limitation and they need to find some sort of support. Could be an NPC, could be a partnership or a friendship struck up with someone who could provide potions or a series of waypoints along an adventure where they would be able to restore that fixed resource besides just resting. I think what I always do is I step back and say, okay, we have this vital aspect of the game for the party, healing themselves after they've taken damage. Here's a huge list. Here's the list of everything I can think of as a DM that can help solve that challenge, right? And then I try to think through my adventure arc and say, how can at each different time, given the challenges that they're likely to face, can they find kind of threads of that resource that they can tap into to keep them going? And it creates this scarce resource scenario that can be really compelling. I personally really like it. So that's how I'd go.
Yeah, I was thinking that with spell scrolls, I mean, when you use them, they're gone, right? So I don't really see, a huge reason to keep people from using them. I get it. You don't want, the wizard to feel like they can't do, cool stuff as just a wizard, but as a wizard you can do your stuff a bunch of times, and if you have a spell scroll they can do it one time in a pinch. So I don't really feel like there's as much of a reason to keep people from doing this, especially if it's going to give them some cool ranged options and things that they wouldn't generally have as a party.
Absolutely. I see no problem with it. I say do it. Let them do it.
Let them do it.
I mean, the other thing is then there's a whole portion of the loot table, especially if you're using randomized loot tables where it's yay, you get all a scroll, which is essentially some gold because none of you can use it. That's no fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's this awesome thing none of you can read.
Yeah. So
that just makes the
cool.
players feel self-conscious about a sense that they made some bad choices.
Right. Oh, we didn't optimize.
Right. And there's no such
we
thing.
should have been a balanced party.
party.
Guys.
Yeah, every time I see things about balanced parties, I'm like, nope, you just need a DM to balance your game for your party. Yeah, I think even in a situation, I mean, personally, like with cleric spells, let's say we found let's say we found a scroll that was a spell that I could equip as a cleric and cast. I would be fine, like, giving that to somebody else in my party because I can cast that. And
Absolutely.
you can't. So I don't even think that if there was a wizard in the party that I wouldn't want the barbarian casting wizard spells. Like, I think I would still be cool with it.
How great an RP moment is if, like, the barbarian gets a natural 20 on their Arcana check to, like,
Yes.
cast, like, I don't even know, Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion or something. It's like, what does the barbarian mansion look like?
Barbarian.
There's a
seriously.
gym.
There's
There's a gym.
Well,
There's another gym.
well, Aaron,
There's a Starbucks.
There's Starbucks.
It reminds me of when Binwin Bronzebottom was using the Wand of Wonder, and he just had no idea what the hell he was
Oh
doing.
my
Oh,
goodness.
yeah,
And they were
yeah.
like,
For a
don't
while.
use it. Don't do it. He was like, I used the wand.
Yes,
yeah.
that is like one of the essences of D&D is moments like that.
Yes.
Those are some of the things you play for.
Absolutely. And in fact, I want to say that I just looked up the Wand of Wonder. The first line is, requires attunement by a spellcaster. So Chris, the god of D&D Perkins himself, waived that kind of, martial class can't use magic stuff rule because it was awesome that Binwin used the wand.
Seriously, I think it's just, if it makes it fun for people and it makes it funny, then by all means.
It's okay to play this game to follow the rules. It's okay to play this game to have awesome shit happen.
Exactly. I think we need a balance of rule following and awesome.
Works for me.
Yeah. So on a, I don't know, maybe I can pretend it's tangentially related. Tim Tam Kablam, A+ for
Tim
that
Tam.
name.
Great
Tim-
candy.
Great candy.
Tim Tam
Kablams in your
Kablam
mouth, not in your hand. Yep.
asks, what are some creatures that aren't beasts that would work well for a ranger to have as their companion?
Air furiously pulls up the monster manual in D&D Beyond.
Scroll.
So I see some people in here mostly being like, it depends on what you mean by works well. They can only choose beast, so anything that isn't a beast doesn't work well at all. All right, Clarent Pie, you missed the point of this question.
You're cut, Clarent.
You don't work well.
You don't work well with theoretical situations.
Your brain has a hard candy shell.
As a hard candy shell. One of the examples here, since I don't have a ton of experience with these things, says that they let their Dragonborn Ranger take a pseudo-dragon as a companion. Like, it has bad HP and HC, but it's great for exploration and can do some cool stuff, but isn't super strong. So I think that is probably the biggest thing, is that making sure that you don't have something with a crazy high CR. You get a dragon companion.
Right. I think start by CR, and then the other thing I'd say is go a little outside the challenge rating and think about down tuning a little bit.
I think what would work best is something that makes sense backstory or race and class wise. Like, I'm just thinking Fia was almost a ranger, and I totally wasn't feeling many of the companions. And she is an elf. Like, I feel like something from the Feywild would suit her better than like a typical cat or dog.
I like the idea
thing.
of detuning certain celestials, and I think Fey is a great. It's just a very fertile area to look into.
I think there's a lot of really fun options here that you could tie into a backstory. Like, I'm just looking at some basic CR0 creatures, which wouldn't even be tactically, advantageous, but flavor-wise, Haley, could I sell you on an awakened
I was
shrub?
just about to say I want an awakened shrub companion.
All
Please.
day long.
I want an
All day
awakened
long.
shrub.
And, there's a great story
crawling claw.
for a
A
spirit.
cultist. Apparently a cultist is a CR One ace. Can you just have a cultist companion?
Well, then you're not a then you have to be a cult leader. That's the only issue.
Well, or you've saved him, right? Like, listen, I'm trying to show
yeah.
him the beauty of nature and not the beauty of Tiamat. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm trying to rehabilitate this young man or woman or anything in between or outside thereof. A homunculus, perhaps this is something that, they were able to create or freed from a mad wizard. There's a whole bunch of
Yeah.
awesome
A fungus?
potential things in here.
Fungi?
A fungus,
You can
yes.
have a really fun guy. Ha ha ha. Laugh at my jokes.
I'm there. I'm there.
I'm thinking.
Even the tiny servant from Xanathar's Guide, like having a little steampunk friend,
Yes.
would be fun without the spell, just as part of the feature for the Ranger, the Beastmaster Ranger.
Yeah, well, so the
Yeah.
very first thought I had was a Modron who's sort of
I was
gone
just gonna
feral.
say a Modron.
You can be the guy from Minions.
Yeah.
Modrons really do look like just geometric Modrons.
Minions,
Modrons,
geometric minions. Yeah.
Minions.
Yes, geometric minions, yes. Flumps, you could have a Flump companion. And Flumps actually I think they have some stuff they can do. Yeah, they have stench spray,
Yeah.
DC 10 dexterity saving throw, or you smell bad for 1d4 hours.
Oh my goodness. I think you could also add some cool things to these. Like an awakened shrub. It probably doesn't really do much besides be a shrub, but you could add some cool things. Nothing says that you can't take something that's not a great optimized creature for you and add some things.
For the past year, I've been pulling out thorn bushes from underground in my backyard, and they have done at least 20 points of damage over that period
I have
of time.
seen pictures of these. That would be a great wicked companion. An awakened rosebush. Slap
Yeah.
them with your thorns.
With Vine Whip powers.
Vine whip. Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
Svart?
What?
I mean, they're chaotic evil, but maybe this is a nice Svart.
A Svart? What's a
Svart, yeah, a Svart. They're these little, stocky, blue. They kind of look like cylinders with faces and little arms and legs. If you've ever seen the art by Richard Witters, his profile picture on Twitter is a Svart, and apparently he has Svarted all of the D&D staff. In fact, when Kate Welch was recently hired, she was given her own Svart avatar. Svartatar?
Freaking
Anyway.
fringe benefits, man. Jeez.
Yeah, I know, right? And it was very adorable. So yeah, they'd be a cute little critter to have along with you. Anyway, we could go on and on and on about this. Blink dog. Anyway, Axebeak. Oh, that is a
Axebeak, I
beast. You
want
could
an
literally
Axebeak.
have that. All right. So yes, the answer is clearly you should allow them to do it within reason and anything that's fun and makes sense to their backstory. And go team go.
Go team go. All right.
Amen.
It's going to be Air's favorite question of the night. How many sets of organs does a sexy centaur have? The question actually is just, does a centaur have? I added that in. This question was asked by Rio.
Are we talking about reproductive anatomy here?
Just internal
Well, it's a centaur,
organs.
so obviously.
I think the answer in that case is whatever you need.
What yeah, that's true.
Whatever your fantasy is, that is how many.
Yeah,
think-
they can check that box.
I think it's just, do they have lungs where the horse parts would have lungs and the human parts have lungs? Where are their intestines?
It's just
Also-
all lungs.
It's all lungs.
It's all
They don't
lungs.
have
The
any-
whole thing. No stomach.
It's
only
lungs all the
lungs.
way down. Oh dear God! So in the thread
just
itself, it
posted
actually
it.
has an anatomical
Chart.
drawing of a centaur labeled and numbered with where the artist thinks all the bits are.
Secondary heart.
Oh,
Two
yeah.
hearts.
mhm.
I think two hearts would make
Two
sense.
hearts
though,
that beat as one.
Because that's a lot of blood to flow through. A very large.
Yeah.
That's a
Creature.
really
True.
good point. That's a really good point.
I mean, horses have to have real big hearts anyway.
I'm sorry. I'm 5. Number 9. Rectum. Thank you. And a centaur anatomy artist. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Yeah, but absolutely 2 hearts for the blood flow I mean, they've got powerful hindquarters, strong haunches, but they're also always, ripped in the upper haunches,
It's
so
true. The
they would have
upper
to have
haunches.
two arms. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Oh, goodness. All right,
Yeah.
well, we will post this anatomical drawing of a centaur for those of you who have burning questions about centaur
Yes.
anatomy.
Yes. Anyway,
All right. I have to
whatever
ask...
floats your boat.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat. I
Yeah.
have to ask my favorite question now of the night.
I think we got time for one more. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Knivy, Knivy, Knivy asks, how can my drow sorcerer pursue shutting off the sun? It's a long-term goal in a real-world solar system type planet system.
I just realized this is like the most powerful metagame ever. There's like, that sunlight sensitivity for drow sucks.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if I could shut off the sun.
Exactly.
So my answer.
Just get a hat, dude.
I was saying, yeah, my answer: get a hat or just close your eyes for a really long time.
Go back underground. Try a forest. I heard they're nice.
How would you shut off the sun? Like, I love how their drow sorcerers become some kind of maniacal Bond villain.
Yeah, I just really enjoy this. It's very good that you have long-term goals. Maybe. I think that...
So I think one of the challenges that this character is going to face is they could take the approach of producing basically a sun shield, a la Mr. Burns, who I think did this once himself in The Simpsons, and just try to cover the sun for a swath of a planet. But then you're going to have to deal with, most likely, the death of vegetation and the entire food chain. So you'd have to find a way to magically, artificially support that while coming up with some sort of physical or magical barrier creation, much like an atmospheric layer around the planet.
Or they don't care.
But they care. It's a long-term goal. I want to support their goals.
You want to support their goals,
I want the best.
But not the death
I want
of the
the best
planet.
for my drow children.
It sounds very much like their plan, since they have mentioned that it's a real-world solar system type planet system. That it sounds like their long-term goals could include going to the sun and damaging it.
Since the dawn of time, man has
Exactly.
longed to step upon the sun.
But then, so that's plan B, right? You actually try to get rid of the sun itself, but then you throw off all the gravitational forces within a solar system, so you're going to have to retain some sort of magical control over the rotation and speed of the planet you're on. And likely you might have to move it out of the solar system in which it currently sits. Which is just going to get you into another mess with some other star system. Who knows? Maybe it'll be like Star Wars. You'll have two suns.
This is actually how Meat and Mouths was created.
You
It's
gotta be
actually
careful
a
what you
drow
wish
who's
for.
tired of the sun.
It all makes
It
sense.
all makes sense now. I think that some more reasonable suggestions would maybe you just make it a Pacific Northwest situation and it's just cloudy and rainy all the time.
Yeah.
And just blotting out the sun.
Control weather. Yeah, if you can't see the sun, it can't see
Can't
you.
see you. Yeah, you could do skywrite and just write "F you, sun" above your head every day.
Just a middle finger emoji.
Yeah. This
Awesome. I don't think we're going to get a better answer than that. Skywrite the sun out of
F you,
existence,
sun.
people.
Yes.
F you, sun.
I don't feel that way, son. I love you. Always be with me. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Insight Check. We hope that you were as entertained as we were recording this. As always, thank you to Vinswept for our intro and outro music, and to Amy T. Falcone for our wonderful art. And if you like our cute little faces and logo, you should totally check out Amy's Patreon account. You can find it by going to her Twitter, Amy T. Falcone. That's Falcon with an E at the end. And you should check that out and support her because we love her art and we want to continue to see her do great things.
So if you follow us, and if you follow us on Twitter, we spam that link heavily. So just stick around and you'll catch it again.
Exactly. You will see it in this episode after this episode posts.
Answering your cues from our collective A's. This
Was
Insight check.
some candy.
Candy? Candy?
Oh, maybe we can start getting some of that Reese's money or Nestle
Yeah.
money or something.
Sponsorship.
I mean, sponsorship. That's what we want. You know, Cadbury, reach out to me. Return my calls.
Right.
Let me love you.